I remember when I directed The Passion, I went to the USCCB to get support for the film. And those men couldn't get away from me fast enough. And all but a few of them turned their back on me. And it was pretty telling about who they were. A pretty insipid bunch. And it doesn't look like anything's changed. Geez, I remember back in the 70s, old priests, good priests, who were bullied and persecuted by their bishops. There was a rash of it back then also, and it was because they wanted to maintain what it was that they were ordained to do. They didn't want to go along with the new liturgy and the reforms of Vatican II, and so that they were really heavily leaned on. It was never abrogated, the old Mass, never, and it still hasn't been. You can't. It's protected by quo primum. But they were bullied and badgered and put in insane asylums, and, it was pretty sad to watch. And this kind of thing is now happening again. So, and how are we supposed to know the good guys from the bad guys? Well, we were given a standard by which to judge them. By their fruits, you'll know them. By their fruits. Anybody seen any good fruit lately? It's tough. And look, I'm a pretty sinful guy. I mean, I'm as venal as the next guy. But I know the difference between a shepherd and a hireling. And I think that the vast majority of these bishops are just a bunch of hirelings, And my question is, who's hiring them? I don't think it's Jesus. Is it Francis? Who's hiring Francis? Is it Pachamama? I mean, I think you need to look at the whole institution. And, I'll quote Archbishop Vigano again in saying that he believes that there was a parallel counterfeit church set up to eclipse the real one.
Mel Gibson, a very, very interesting person so far. So we know that he's working on a 4-part documentary exposing Hollywood and exposing the child trafficking going on. By the way, he's putting his life at risk. We already know what happens to people that try to expose the truth, especially him. And in 1998, right, he, in this video, is talking about a being, a person that he spoke to. Some type of producer. But if you hear the way he's explaining this, he has definitely encountered something much bigger than life. Something biblical. Something anti-Christ, evil-like. And it seems that after this film in 1998, Mel Gibson began to fall. All type of controversy started to happen. Listen, when you speak out against these things, usually good things do not come your way. When you speak out and let people know the secrets behind this demonic type of industry, which is Hollywood overall, entertainment. Hollywood, this guy has done The Passion of Christ, Apocalypto, Lethal Weapon. He's a legend within himself. But once again, me finding out about the 4-part documentary, about him trying to speak up and trying to do the right thing, because he's been in those circles, he's been there himself. This clip that I'm about to show is crazy. Just listen to what he has to say. Now, this is part of a 25-minute interview from back in 1998. You guys can check it out. I'll have it down in the description box below. But just this one part is crazy, man. Let's go.
I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on, because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand.
Right.
And nobody was really bothering to explain it to me.
They don't.
And I formed a bunch of opinions about the town and about the people in it that were like, surely that couldn't be, because a whole place can't be like, Weird Town, where the stranger wanders in and all the people are in the bar and they all shut up when he looks at them and they tell you don't go out of the house on the hill. It's like that. And then you go away and you think, no, I was wrong. I mean, that's insane thinking. I'm paranoid. I imagined that stuff. That couldn't be the reason for why so-and-so was acting like, could it? And then you find out later on the track that you are exactly on track with a lot of this stuff. Not specifically on track, but that you could, that some of your worst nightmares were real. at the time, and you think, no, he came to see me on a rooftop in New York. I said, hey, can I talk to you? And he said, sure. And he floated in, sideways, through a crowd of people. He was wearing black, and it was like one of those old vampire movies where they don't walk, but they glide. And he was a dancer, so he has he's very, graceful.
Yeah.
And he moved sideways, and he just sat down in a chair next to me, and it kind of frightened me. And he's a very smart guy. And we started talking, and I didn't, say much of anything about reading the script, nothing. I just started talking about the Middle Ages, and he began to talk tortures. And we swapped tortures, because I'd read this book on torture. And I tried to recall some of the most heinous things I'd ever read in this book, and he was like, oh, and he'd try and top it. And my assistant was there, and he left because he couldn't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
The air had turned cold. And then he left, and I wanted to leave. And because I knew that I didn't want to work with him.
Yeah.
And he was getting scary.
Yeah.
And there's a producer I know, successful producer, I will not mention names, but his whole opinion about women on film, from beginning to end, is very brief. He says, women on film, either naked or dead. Both is better. And it's like, whoa, whoa. The man has got a spiritual malady for a start. I mean, the scary thing is that I think a lot of people think that.
Whew! That is Mel Gibson, man, talking about his experiences in Hollywood. And man, like I said, the full interview is spectacular, but just this one particular motion really describes what Hollywood really is and what Hollywood has become, right? This satanic ritual type of way of living where evil wins. And once again, Mel Gibson today, I personally, I really, when people start to crack the code and start to take those steps into Christ, into the calling. And I know he's a devout, somebody said he's a devout Catholic in one of my last videos. But this guy has been exposing this for a while. And you could tell the way someone's life is headed that it has affected them and the secrets that they spill. And now he's working on a 4-part documentary series about the child trafficking going on in the United States of America and Ukraine and all these different things. I mean, these are deep, dark secrets that people are trying to protect. He's about to expose a $34 billion business. A $34 billion a year business. That's more than the airlines of today. I'm not sure. I think American Airlines, if I'm not mistaken, they make over $22 billion a year. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, protect this man that clearly has seen one of the most evil things you can. People like this that have gone through hell, people like this that have gone through it all, depression, controversy, crazy comments, cancellation, all of the things. Like, there's a reason why these people exist and have gone through trials and tribulation. Because they know, they've seen it with their own very eyes. They've seen it with their own very eyes. They've experienced it. And God uses these people in mysterious ways. If you look at some of the best people on this planet, they have gone through it all. They have gone through every controversy, every cancellation possible by people. The way that people think about them is usually extremely bad, but those are the same people that bounce back and they have seen it all, done it all. This guy right here encountered something crazy, and now he's taking steps in 2023 to expose it all. God protect this man, because we don't know. We don't know what could happen to somebody like Mel Gibson. We don't know, man. He's been low-key. I think he was seen at a UFC event saluting Donald Trump. Donald Trump also reposted something about him on Truth Socials. So you can tell the correlation of where some of these controversial people are trying to take America and trying to expose these elites, this establishment that exists. You guys let me know exactly what you think about Mel Gibson and the story. This is crazy. But this is what Hollywood has become, and this is what Hollywood has always been, in my opinion. Just evil, satanic stuff that happens and must be exposed. Especially when it comes to children, man. I'll see you guys on the next one, man. Follow me on Rumble at Lou Valentino. Join the locals today.
Train. Got a phone call from Mel Gibson. He actually did the final edit of The Sound of Freedom. That's how we know each other, but not well enough that I'd be getting phone calls. And he told me that he was in Budapest at the time. This was right hours after the invasion, and he said he supports a bunch of orphans in Ukraine, and he was worried about them, and he asked if I could help get them out. So now I've got 12 from my wife, I got 13 others from Mel Gibson. And I'm thinking, okay, I got this list of kids I got to get out. I told Mel, I said, you got to help me. This is going to be expensive. I won't ask you for direct donation, but can you help me film this? Let's film what's happening so we can get people to understand and they can support us. He said, no problem. He helped us get set up and started filming. 4 months later, what I thought was going to be maybe a documentary about Ukraine ends up being a 4-part docuseries. It's almost done. It's being produced by DNA Films and executive produced by Tony Robbins. That's how crazy it got and how prophetic my wife was. When I showed up in Ukraine with a list of, I think, 20 names, the Ukrainians countered me and gave me over 10,000 names of orphans that they didn't know where they were because of the chaos caused by war. And more importantly, and more frightening to me, was the fact that I know that human trafficking is a $32 billion a year business. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, and I also know how kids get forced into that market. And it's through vulnerable situations like in the aftermath of a hurricane, mostly in a developed country, or an earthquake, or in this case, a war. And so the traffickers call it harvest time. And that was the intel we were getting. And so we weren't just there to extract those kids, but look for leads. And it really was a miracle what happened. It's one of these things that, faith precedes the miracle. I take a lot of comfort in the fact that there's only one time in the scripture where Jesus gets mafioso. It's righteous because it's Jesus doing it. But if you listen to his words, it's mafioso. He says that it would be better for you to have a millstone cast about your neck and you thrown to the bottom of the sea than that you would hurt one of these little ones.